After the glory of the Middle Kingdom, Egypt weakened again. The economy collapsed, chaos filled the country, and the kings were powerless. But Al-Maradi, the danger wasn't just from within. From the east, a strange enemy emerged, the Hyksos. They came with war chariots and bronze weapons, things the Egyptians had never seen before. In a short time, they controlled the delta. For the first time in Egypt's long history, the Egyptians were doomed to live under the rule of foreigners. But was this the end? No. From the heart of defeat, Egypt began to prepare itself anew, and from the ashes would rise the greatest military power known to the pharaohs, the New Kingdom.
After Egypt weakened and the power of the kings declined, the eastern borders opened up, not to massive armies, but to waves of foreigners, people coming from Canaan and Palestine. At first, they were traders, entering with ease, carrying goods with them, buying and selling. Later, they became immigrants looking for fertile land and security. The Egyptians saw them and said, "It's normal." But the strange thing was that their numbers began to increase and their influence grew. Amid the chaos in which Egypt was immersed, these small groups transformed into a terrifying force. And suddenly, the Egyptians found themselves faced with a new people called the Hyksos. The Hyksos didn't just bring swords, they brought technology that changed everything. The war chariot, which made battle faster and more dangerous. Curved bronze swords, more powerful than the Egyptians' daggers. Composite bows, striking from afar with deadly accuracy. The Hyksos chose the city of Avaris in the eastern delta and made it their capital. From there, they declared themselves rulers of the land of the Pharaohs. Imagine, the Egyptian who considered himself master of the world suddenly became ruled by strangers? The shock was more powerful than the occupation itself. But the story isn't over yet. This is just the beginning, and a conflict that would change the fate of Egypt was still to come.
After long years of humiliation and Hyksos domination, anger was boiling in the hearts of the people of Thebes in Upper Egypt. The people there couldn't bear the idea of strangers ruling the land of the pharaohs. Seqenenre, the first to ignite the spark, the king who said enough and decided to confront the Hyksos with his small army. The battle was brutal, and his skull, which has been found to this day, bearing fractures from swords and axes, testifies that he fought to his last breath. Seqenenre fell, but the fire of resistance ignited. Kamose. After him came his son Kamose. He continued the war against the Hyksos, struck them in the heart of Avaris and cut off their supply routes. He achieved important victories, but he couldn't finish them off completely. Ahmose won, and here comes the big scene, the young Ahmose I. He inherited courage from his father and brother and added a new military mind and organization. He formed a strong army, trained it on the same weapons as the Hyksos, chariots and bronze swords. He began the decisive campaign, battle after battle, until he was able to expel the Hyksos from the delta, pursuing them as far as Palestine and Syria. And in the end, around 1550 BC, Egypt was returned to its owners. The Hyksos were expelled and victory was achieved. The beginning of an age of glory. From blood and sacrifice, the 18th dynasty arose, and with it, the new kingdom was born. The era that would witness the greatest names of the pharaohs, Thutmose, Hatshepsut, and Ramses. This story is not just a war. It was a rebirth for Egypt.
After Egypt expelled the invaders, it wasn't satisfied with liberation. It decided to become a superpower, its name resounding throughout the world. Thutmose III, Egypt's Napoleon, the king who was born a warrior. He fought 17 military campaigns, the most famous of which was the Battle of Megiddo. This battle was written in detail on temple walls, the first time history recorded a complete battle. After that, he extended his influence to Palestine and Syria, reaching the Euphrates River. The Egyptian empire was literally at its peak. Hatshepsut, the woman who sat on the throne of the pharaohs. She ruled for about 20 years, but she didn't choose war. She chose trade. Her most famous expedition was to the land of Punt, in Africa. She brought back incense, ivory, wood, and a huge fortune. She left all of this depicted on the walls of her temple at Deir el-Bahari. His era was peaceful, but his glory lives on to this day.
Amenhotep III, the pharaoh of wealth and art. In his era, Egypt reached the pinnacle of wealth. He built huge temples and colossal statues, like the Colossi of Memnon. Thebes at that time became a global center of art and beauty. Akhenaten, the rebel, decided to turn the world upside down, saying, "There is only one God, Aten, the sun god." He moved the capital to a new location and named it Akhenaten. But this experiment, despite its strangeness and boldness, weakened Egypt from the outside. The princes in Asia rebelled, and Egypt's influence began to wane. Tutankhamun, the child pharaoh, reinstated the worship of the old gods. But his life was short. He died young, and yet he remained the most famous pharaoh. Why? Because his tomb, found intact in the Valley of the Kings, an amazing treasure, immortalized his name more than any other king. Ramses II, the Great. He ruled for more than 60 years. He led the Battle of Kadesh against the Hittites, a massive battle that ended with the first written peace treaty in history. He built the greatest temples, such as Abu Simbel and the Ramesseum. Ramses was a symbol of a powerful Egypt, one that everyone feared to approach. From Thutmose to Ramesses, this was the age of true glory. Egypt at that time was not just a country, it was an empire that shook the world. But behind this glory, there were challenges lurking, waiting for the moment when history would turn the page. After the military victories, and after the pharaohs extended their authority over the east and the south, Egypt was not just a military power, it became a center of civilization and culture. In Thebes, the Karnak pillars rose like a stone forest defying time. And on the banks of the Nile, they built the temples of Luxor and Abu Simbel, testaments to the greatness of the kings of the New Kingdom and to immortalize the names of Ramses and Thutmose forever. But life was not all stones and temples. There was a vibrant human pulse. Literature flourished, and poetry appeared that glorified kings and gods. And heroic stories were told to soldiers and people, as if the Egyptians wanted to write an epic using the combined power of their swords and words. As for daily life, society itself changed. Wealth was no longer the preserve of the nobility and the palacemen. Instead, a middle class of scribes, merchants, and skilled craftsmen emerged. The markets were teeming with goods from Africa, Nubian gold, elephant ivory, and exotic animal hides. From Asia, they brought cedar wood, perfumes, and oils. At the heart of society, a new element emerged: soldiers. They were not merely tools of war. They became an influential class, receiving rewards and land upon their return from battle. The Egyptian soldier in the new kingdom knew that his sword not only protected the borders, but also created his glory and social status. Thus, military power blended with artistic renaissance, temples with poems, and markets with soldiers, creating a complete image of the Egyptians as a civilization at the height of its power and maturity. At the time, Egypt was becoming an empire. The world around it wasn't standing still. On the contrary, it was boiling. Mesopotamia. In the east, Babylon fell, and a new power began to emerge from Anatolia, the Hittites. A warrior people, they clashed with the Egyptian armies, becoming the first real rival to the Egyptian Empire. Greece. If we look west, toward the Aegean Sea, you'll find the Mycenaeans, the early beginnings of Greek civilization. A simple warrior society, but one that would later spawn legends like Troy and Achilles. India. As for the Far East, there the pages of the world's first religions began to be written. The Vedas, which would eventually become the foundation of Hinduism and change the culture of half the world. China. And in the Far East, China. The Shang dynasty emerged, the first advanced Chinese civilization. They crafted exquisite bronze, organized their armies, and wrote in the symbols that would later become Chinese calligraphy. Conclusion. The world was full of rises and falls. Civilizations were born, and civilizations collapsed. And Egypt was at the heart of the scene. Not just a country on the banks of the Nile, but a key player in a multi-power global system. A system that would witness the first major clashes between the empires of the ancient world. From the defeat of the Hyksos until Egypt returned with strength, raised its head, and became an empire, the Egyptians wrote one of the greatest chapters in human history. But I wonder, is there anything that lasts forever? Just as there is rise, there is also fall. After the glory of Ramses II, Egypt began to weaken little by little, until the doors opened to the west. And suddenly, Egypt, once the master of the world, lost its independence for the first time. Stay tuned for the next episode, The Age of Decline, from Ramses to the Persians and Greeks.